Hey, what's up, everybody? It's JT Hudson here from Drag Illustrated Magazine. We're coming to you with a new show. It's going to be every time before NHRA race, I believe, is how we're going to do it. We haven't decided for sure, but I think that's what we're planning on doing. And it's called Who You Got? And we're going to teach you how to bet. We're going to go through betting. We're going to hit on Winlight bets. We're going to hit on bracket Bonanza. We may even talk about some grudge racing. But joining me for this is going to be Rex Simmermaker from Winlight Bets and my boy Elon Werner. Sorry about that, Elon.
We just had a conversation about how to pronounce my name. So JT was so focused on, is it Elon or Elon? And
I think I've been calling you Elon for a long time, so it's going to be hard for me to go back to that. See, I had Rex down.
I need to go with a simple name like Rex. You know,
I'm gonna solve this. We're just gonna call you the Big E.
I go Big E. Big E was a go-to for a lot of people. So that and Chief and Pal,
Chief, Pal, Big E, and
Big E, whatever.
Elon.
But yeah,
but he does answer to Elon. Trust me.
Yeah,
I've said it for years now. So, but guys, so what do you think? We're gonna launch this new show. We're gonna air it before the NHRA races weekly, and we're gonna go through picks. We're even probably gonna ask the fan for picks as well. Yeah. And I think it's gonna be very educating.
Well, listen, hey, we're in a new era right now, JT. Like, we're in a new era where fans can actually make money betting on drag racing. And that's never happened legally in the world before. It's happened for sure, but we're in a new era where you can legally make money from your drag racing knowledge. And we do have very knowledgeable fans, which is something that, truthfully, I don't think every sport can say. But we have very, very knowledgeable fans. And to me, it's very exciting because our fans now get to put that knowledge to good use and make a few bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the fantasy side, for me with Drag Race Bracket Bonanza, it's a great opportunity to have the fans that are playing for free, they're playing for prizes, but if they're really good at it, here's an opportunity for them to potentially dabble in a little bit of gambling. You know, I don't think anyone's going to get super rich, but we've had 13 perfect brackets picked this year already in Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. So there are people, like Rex said, that are very knowledgeable, that understand how the sport works. And our sport, there's favorites, there's underdogs, and it's unpredictable. But, there's some things that you just kind of know they're more than likely going to happen. And if you can get that edge, Gage Herrera's won 9 pro stock motorcycle races in a row. You're not going to make a lot of money betting on Gage Herrera, but you could make some money.
That's true. Now, you had 13 perfect brackets.
Yeah.
And how many people on average are playing?
We have just over 1,000 brackets being filled out every race. And
that's pretty impressive then.
We have just over 3,000 people that have signed up, about 200 leagues. And some of the leagues are just families, and some the WFO league or the Not Bland Show or Competition Plus, the Motorplex has a league.
Yeah, we have a league.
The Drag Illustrated's got a league. They have 20 people, 30 people, 75 people. So that's the thing that with Drag Race Bracket Bonanza being free, you can just pick your drivers, and we tell people pick your drivers, win cool prizes, and we still have people that will win. That when we send them the outreach email of like, hey, let us have your mailing address, so we can send you your prizes. They're like, oh, there's prizes. People just want to be involved. They just want to have a little skin in the game.
Yep.
And that's where the fantasy can bleed over into, play NHRA or the gambling programs NHRA started.
Well, and that skin in the game is what gambling's all about, I guess.
Yeah.
For years, and that's why it's probably addictive at some point, because it makes you not want to watch a certain event, without having some skin in the game. But it makes it so much more fun, even if you're doing something like that or a gentleman's bet with your buddy, either way, it gets you involved. It gets you to pay attention. It gets you to pick a side. It gets you on your feet. It's just what it's about. And then Rex, explain to us a little bit about Winlight bets.
Yeah. So Winlight bets, we obviously we talk about having fan interaction, and you mentioned just a second ago that fan interaction. There's lots of ways to do that, but when you put your whole cold hard, U.S. dollars on the line, that's as interactive as it can be. And so it's the next best thing to holding the steering wheel, I guess. But with Winlight Bets, we rolled out our free-to-play game last year. So round by round, pair by pair, you could play, and you could wager your coins, so to speak. They're not real U.S. dollars. It was free to play. It was free to sign up, free to play. But you could win real money and real prizes. And here at the end of this year, the end of 2024, we will have a real money version that we'll release. So that you can bet round by round and put money on every single pair, which I think is super cool and really what we as fans want.
And you'll be betting against somebody like in a room, almost like a poker room. Right?
Yeah, what you mentioned was a gentleman's bet. Right. So a handshake bet, gentleman's bet, and that's what it'll be, except it will, you can do that through the power of the internet and the apps that we all have on our phone right now. It's not it's a handshake bet, but instead of being in the same room with somebody, you could be across the country or across the world. And
that's pretty awesome. Yeah. I mean, and for somebody that hasn't done something like that, maybe somebody has downloaded No Limit Drag Racing. It'll be similar to that, I would say, because there's a room in there. You put up, well, you will have the actual action as far as what they're betting on, but you find somebody in there that'll take your bet on whatever you're wanting to bet, and then they can grab that, and then you're locked in. Is that correct? Pretty much.
It's exactly right. The downside to that type of stuff is you have to trust the other side will pay you when they lose. And so with Winlight Bets, you don't have to worry about that. It's the same thing with
right. You're holding the money.
Yeah, we're holding money. We're going to pay out just like title insurance people do when you're buying a house. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, we're putting the trust in us, going, okay, you're going to pay.
You're the gambler's escrow, man.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And that's the whole thing, right? You want to be able to know that, hey, if I put up money, I can win some,
right.
And so that's the deal.
Absolutely. Now, this last weekend was Bristol, and they rolled out for the first time ever in drag racing. And I think the only place that we could place bets last weekend that we saw was DraftKings and Caesars. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. And it was great. It was really interesting to see how people reacted to it. They talked about it a lot at the race. It was quite the buzz because you saw some things that, particularly in some of the classes, Gage Herrera kind of struggling a little bit. I mean, he came in as an overwhelming favorite for that race.
Right.
But he qualified fourth. So there was a lot of movement on his odds. Now, he did wind up winning the race, but, there was a lot of movement there. There was some movement, I think, between Greg Anderson. You saw some movement with Tony Schumacher. And I think you'll see that even more coming out of the race because you could bet number one qualifier, race winner, and then 2024 champions. So I think if you got in early on Tony Schumacher, I think he was pretty long odds. But after winning that race and being so consistent, that's going to be the really interesting thing about people figuring out and the guys at Alt Data really diving into the numbers, and you're seeing that. But, on the Drag Race Bracket Bonanza side, this was the first race that Gage Herrera wasn't the most picked pro stock rider. Matt Smith actually edged him out a little bit, but
which Matt Smith has a huge following. So he
has a huge following, and it's natural that when you see, we'll probably have over 1,000 people making picks. So that kind of where our data comes from. And Austin Prock is the runaway most popular picked driver of all four categories. More people have confidence in him winning than any of the other, even more than Gage Herrera, which is really interesting to me because he's, like 56% of the people are consistently think Austin's going to win the race. And, basically we can kind of see that data, and it plays out a little bit based on qualifying position, but they're looking at it historically, who's winning races, who's going rounds. And that's kind of the cool data that we're getting with Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. It is you're betting with your heart and your head. But again, it's free. Anyone can play, and that's what I like. We had kids coming up talking about playing with their parents and things like that. So I think that's, like Rick says, it's a whole new era of people getting involved and just getting more invested in our sport.
Yep. And, it's funny because even if you take other sports, Tiger Woods, even when he dropped off a little bit, it was still, you could still place the bet, Tiger against the field, but that following, I'd say the books made a lot of money on everybody betting Tiger because he had fallen off at that point. But man, that following though, it followed him all the way through to the books, and they made a lot of money off of it. And then we won't probably see. Well, this last race, we didn't see the odds come out until Thursday late, something like that. And hopefully we get those a little bit sooner. But it's going to be a little bit hard with drag racing, don't you think? With you got to make sure everybody's there.
Yep.
But they run into this at in other sports as well. Golf is one that I guess we could relate to a little bit because it's individual sport, and you have withdrawals, you have injuries, leading up to the tournament. So that's the rub of the green, they say. So you have to take that chance.
And it'll be interesting. We kind of go from the first race of Bristol. It'll be interesting, kind of like you talked about, JT, on the timing of when they put the odds out with Virginia just being a Saturday, Sunday race.
True. Yep.
Because you've got 3 qualifying sessions on Saturday. So I would love, I'm going to try to do a better job of keeping track of the odds to just see how it fluctuates from, if Tony Schumacher comes in as a heavy favorite, and then after Q1, he's number 16 qualifier. After Q2, he's number 15 qualifier. But we've shown this, if anything, this past weekend at Bristol showed that where you qualified in NHRA this season does not matter. There's so many quality teams because Schumacher was like 15 qualifier. There were guys that were 14 qualifier, 12 qualifiers making it to the semifinals or finals. So it's wide open.
Erica Henders is the poster child for that, isn't she?
Yeah.
Really, there's how many times has she won and not been the number one qualifier? Yeah. It happened a lot there for a couple of years. So,
right. But it's interesting to just see how when you're looking at the picks and people filling out their brackets, where their confidence is kind of number one qualifier is going to get the most, but then it's kind of a whole pot of just everyone else after that, whether it's Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta, Steve Torrance, Josh Hart, Justin Ashley was the favorite, but he got picked a lot to win, but in that first round, he was tight with Brittany.
Right.
So
it'll be interesting too. I hope that this just keeps increasing. I do hope that at some point we can get parlays. I hope they include Pro Mod, at some point. Well, hell, we wanted that for years, right? So,
Right.
But speaking of Pro Mod, we ran into a situation this weekend where the winner, the win was taken away from J.R. Gray, and it happened fairly quick. But that's a discussion that is going to have to be had as well. What's going to happen in this deal if they do take it away? You are betting on an app, so unless you have cashed out just immediately, but there would be a chance that somebody did cash out, beforehand. What do you guys think about that?
From a sports book perspective, I think, this is how I look at it, obviously. I think there are times, and this to me would be one of them, where you pay out both sides. That's what you do from a fan experience standpoint. If you have a business and you have VIP customers, you want to take care of them. And there are occasions where you want to take care of both sides, because that's something no fan could ever possibly foresee. And it wasn't a performance advantage as well. I think those are case by case basis, but from, from the standpoint that I look at things, to me, that's probably a pay both sides, and that's a cost of doing business and move forward.
I think you're right there. I mean, and paying both sides. I think you almost have to this early in the game too.
Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. We run into that with Drag Race Bracket Bonanza, where we've had a couple unique deals. We've had Pro Stock this last race. We had 3 different people have perfect brackets. So we have one plaque that's signed by the race winner, and we use top speed as the tiebreaker. That's a known deal. But we knew we needed to take care of those other 2 guys. So we basically reached out to them and said, we're going to send you official Drag Race Bracket Bonanza team hats, so you not walk away empty-handed.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's unique is we're finding is we had 2 guys get perfect funny car brackets, but they were not the overall winner, because the guy that was the overall winner basically went in heavy on J.R. Todd, who was the number 12 qualifier, and they got upset points. Mm-hmm. So they basically, even though they had a near perfect bracket, mm-hmm. but where they were not perfect was in those upset deals where they got almost triple points per round, and it was enough to actually put them in front of a guy that had a perfect bracket. And we table talked it last night, and we're like, hey, that's, we were looking into that. But I mean, because I was like, that's just crazy. I mean, I get it, but you really have to, but we looked at it, you have to thread the needle perfectly. You have to, be perfect. But the one thing you're not perfect needs to be an upset. If it would have been like an 8 seed, it wouldn't have been an issue. But the fact that JR was a 12 seed and did as well as he did is just kind of an anomaly. But we basically, the 2 guys that got a perfect funny car bracket, we sent them hats because, again, to Rex's point, you just want to take care of your players. You want to take care of the guys that are supporting your game. And, again, we had an issue Sunday morning where we had high traffic, and our server went down 70 minutes before the brackets closed. The worst possible time.
Yes.
And no one could get their picks in. So we basically, it was an issue where our leaderboard was updating, and as people were putting picks in, it just kind of got hung up a little bit, and it just kind of compounded on itself. And our data usage just shot up and basically just froze on us. We're able to isolate the problem, get it back online, but we basically got that fixed. And then we had customers that were like, oh my gosh, now I'm out of it for overall because I didn't get my picks in. And what we decided, because for the whole season long championship.
Yep.
So basically what we decided to do, and we just alerted everybody, is we just took the Thunder Valley Nationals out of the overall count. So instead of the overall series being 20 races, it's only going to be 19. So everyone has a chance to get their picks in. But again, like to Rex's point, you got to be reactive. You got to try to kill them with customer service. And on a case where a guy gets thrown out of a race or the ladder changes, which we've also seen, either going to have to pay it, basically either pay everybody out or just take it off the board and give everybody that bet their money back.
Right.
Well, that's to your point, too, there are, from time to time, and if you notice, like NBA arenas, they are all updated with the latest wireless, the 5G, whatever, how many Gs that there are now. They've got them all, right? They've
got all the Gs.
They got all the
Gs. And, there are drag strips that don't have as many Gs. And so that can be an issue if you're going to a race on Sunday and it's a packed house, which it was in New England. And I know it had a great attendance at Bristol. And, that could be an issue of getting in bets. So, I think that's something that the drag strips, the association, are going to have to deal with.
Well, you've probably dealt with that a lot, haven't you, Rex? Because when you're on location at these places, most of these everybody that's probably watching this know that most of the drag strips around are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and there is limited service. And when you start packing that house, there's only so much room in the pipeline. So, but when you're out at those, you use a lot of data, don't you?
The amount of hours that I've spent talking with different people trying to get, up-to-date 5G wireless access to these drag strips, which, to your point, are typically not in downtown big cities. For a reason, we need the space. We take up a lot of space to do what we do. Yeah, right. And we like it that way. That's perfect. But it does present that challenge. So, it took us 3 different systems to boost enough internet. Like we went through the gray hairs, the headaches, the bumps on the face, until we figured it out. And that doesn't solve all of the issues, but if you're at the track and Winlight Bets is there, you don't have any issues from that because it took us time to figure that out. So I don't have any fear that the NHRA won't figure it out.
Right.
But it took us some time to do it.
Absolutely. Let's move on to there's going to be a lot of people that may not have ever gambled a day in their life before. And so just one of you guys want to explain like the underdog, the favorites, underdog, the plus, the minuses to the fans out there on how they can place those bets and what they're doing?
Rex way in that, because when I took the NHRAs, everyone had to take the test to get compliant. There was like 8 questions, and I missed the question about plus and minuses back-to-back times. I just could not get it geared in my head. So I'm gonna let Rex kind of get the whole favorites are the minuses, I think, and underdogs are the pluses.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, JT, I know you have experience. So if you want to hop in here, but I think the first place to start, at least in my opinion, is like one of the things I went to on underdog, and it was betting on the number 1 qualifier. And it also on underdog, it had positions of qualifying. Would they be better or worse than a position? So, and I can't remember specifically who it was, but I want to maybe say Tony Stewart. Was he going to qualify better or worse than 6.5?
Oh, they had that on. They had that on underdog.
That's correct. Yeah, I
awesome.
saw it. So forgive me, it's been a couple of days. I've slept, so I could have screwed it up since then. That said, a newbie might go, why is it saying 6.5? Well, because you can only qualify in the 6th or the 7th position. So they give you 6.5 so that there's no way to have a tie.
Right. No pushes.
So, so there's no half qualifying position. So you could bet either he's going to be better than 6.5, meaning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, or worse than 6.5. And that means 7 to 16. So that's kind of a first place to start that thing. The next thing to really understand is that all of these odds, at least today, are using what's called money line odds, meaning that in theory, you're going to bet $100 every single time. And that's not, you're not required to do that, but in theory, that's what you're going to do. You're going to bet $100.
And that's a good way to think about it when you're looking at the lines. Just always think 100. Just think 100.
That's
right.
And
that'll help you out a ton throughout the year or throughout the time you're spending on there looking at the odds. If it says plus 400, just remember that you can spend $100 to win the $400.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. We assume with those money line odds that you're betting $100. So if it, to your example there, if it says plus 400, that means if you bet 100, you can win 400, and that's a and vice versa. Let's say your favorite going into the weekend is Erica Enders at plus 800. You have to place an $800 bet to win the $100. Correct. Yeah. There's the heavy favorites that way would be, they would be negative numbers, right? They would be.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They would be a negative number. So in that case, and I think Gage Herrera is the best.
He probably was, right?
Like you're almost getting to a point with that guy, which is, it's him or the field, right? That's, what he's doing, guys. What he's doing right now is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's truly historic. No driver rider has ever won 9 races in a row.
It's wild. It is wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I've never been that excited about motorcycles until about this time last year when I just got to burr up my I got excited about buying a motorcycle, and so I did. And so
you can say burr on your butt on here. We're talking about gambling.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I've been really interested in that in the last year or so, and what he's doing is amazing. So in that case, he would be negative 500, something like that, meaning that you would have to put up 500 in order to win 100. So, I mean, he's such a heavy favorite. So that's how that money line works. And I think that's the easiest way of it. As long as you understand that in theory, and you don't have to, but in theory, you're betting $100 every time, then it starts to make a lot of sense.
And talking about Gage Herrera, he actually lost to Matt Smith in the final of the Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty race. Mm-hmm. And that was on Saturday in qualifying. That was the first time he'd ever been beaten in competition. His other two losses were he red lit, and I think he broke one time. But Matt Smith actually outran him on Saturday in the Mission Too Fast as part of qualifying. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because Matt came in the press room, and I was in there, and I was like, when you got to the top end, did your crew guys come up to you like Rocky IV and basically tell you, after Rocky, cut Ivan Drago, and his corner man is like,
he's human.
He's bleeding. He's a human. He's not a machine. And
that's a great movie, by the way. I mean, great movie.
Matt went into the press room and was doing his stuff, and a reporter asked him the exact same question that he and I had been talking about. He goes, "Now this is like, if you ever saw the movie Rocky IV, did you ever think that?" And it was just like, that's the level of dominance that Gage Herrera has is, like you said, he's probably going to be coming into Virginia negative 500, negative 600. And until he gets beaten, you're going to have to take the field but Gianna Evarista made it to the final round. I mean, there's Richard Gadsden's due for a win. So there's people out there that I think would be smart bets if you can get the odds, right, because
racers are too harder workers. Like they figure it out, don't they?
They do figure it out,
and that's why we've never seen something like this happen very often. Is because they will work their ass off until they figure it out,
and they can do it so quickly. It seems like, whereas in other sports, it may take a season for a whole year for a team to catch up because they got to revamp their whole offense almost. Mm-hmm. But in racing, these guys can go to the shop, and it's just strictly they're exchanging hours for performance. And if they have the manpower or the stamina to just be in their shop 24/7, running computer tests,
and be able to afford to go testing. Yep.
It's like that Kobe Bryant example of how he structured his day of getting up at 4:00 in the morning to get 3 workouts in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When that over the course of time, you do that for a year, you've gotten 10,000 more practice hours than your competition. Guys like Matt Smith, when they get knocked down, he's been putting in 20 hours a day. Not to say that the Vance and Hines guy haven't, or Steve Johnson, but it's obvious that he's been putting the work in to close that gap, and he's right there. And that's going to be good for bettors because it's going to be someone's going to catch him in that perfect little sweet spot where Gage is going to be negative 500, but Matt Smith might be plus 250, or Angie Smith. I mean, that's the thing is those team bikes are so similar. You could just take the third Matt Smith racing bike, which is probably Gianna. Matt might be plus 100. Angie's probably plus 200. Gianna might be plus 400.
Right.
I think that's an interesting point.
That is on teams. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, that will be interesting. Yeah.
Same with Elite. Same with KB Titan Racing.
Yeah.
Is that there's lead dogs. Greg Anderson and Erica are the lead dogs.
Yep.
But
David
Quadra, his Jerry Tucker, Brandon Foster, that's where the astute gambler could look at, okay, let's look at the weather. Let's look at this track. Let's just look at the law of average in our sport and look at the ladder.
Look at the ladder. Yeah.
On Saturday night, you can see, okay, this guy's got a favorable matchup. If he can stay away from, a young rider or driver that may not be that great on the tree, if he or she can get on the side of the ladder where there's other people that aren't great on the tree,
especially if you have that knowledge, and you're going to get a lot of that knowledge on this show. I think that we've before the races, we'll have a pretty comprehensive breakdown of a lot of these interesting factors, and even the track itself that they'll be visiting. So, anything else you guys want to close with? I think we've kind of told everybody what we're doing. As stuff does progress, as these the books that do pick this stuff up, we'll try to explain more. If they do allow parlays in the future, we'll run you down through all that too. We'll try to keep you informed on everything, really. And if you guys got any ideas out there about this show and anything that you'd like to see, get a hold of us at any time. Message any of us on Facebook or social media, or JT at dragillustrated.com, and we will try to address whatever you guys want to hear about.
I'm excited about it. I'm really, I'm looking forward to learning more about the gambling side, because I think it'll make the fantasy side that much better, because that creates a lane for us to, have kids, families, everyone playing for fun, and then almost treating that like a learning curve, that if you want to kind of figure it out with zero risk and win some cool stuff, you can do that. And then you can parlay that, no pun intended, into, gambling for 21 or older.
I think you're right on that, because, fantasy came out first before betting was legalized. And I think that it only made it bigger.
Yeah,
I do. And it sure as hell helped the fan interaction with the sport.
Well, yep. And we'll bring all kinds of stats. I think between the three of us being at races, I'm going to let
you guys do the stats.
Exactly. We can do the stats. I'm a big enough nerd that we can do the stats. We can bring the stats to help you out.
And Rex, any closing thoughts?
Well, two things. One is just, from a gamer's standpoint, or what the industry would call punters. Punters are, the people making the wagers. Anything that is like a negative, that means you're a heavy favorite, right? And a positive means, big positive means you're a heavy underdog. So just if you can keep that in mind, that helps. And then, secondly, listen, it's betting on drag racing is not nearly as fun as holding the steering wheel, but it's probably the next best thing.
Yeah. Yes, I'd have to agree with that. Yep.
And I think the cool thing too is going to be just educating people on where the resources are beyond NHRA.com and beyond Drag Illustrated, beyond Competition Plus. There's drag race references coming along at the perfect time.
Right.
Yep.
Drag Race Bracket Bonanza, we have stats, being able to dive into that being able to kind of, and I think it's going to open up other lanes for people too. I think we probably look at getting some of the track specialists on to talk about educating people about how track conditions come in to affect races, because that gets into natural grass versus turf type situations.
Right.
So anything the viewers want to hear, hey, how can I get better at this, or what can we do? Let us know. And like JT said, you can find us all on social media. But I'm excited about talking about this with you guys.
I am too. I really am, and I think it's going to be great for everybody in the long run. I know that there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't like gambling that much, but really, like you said, it's like the next best thing, and it just lets you ride along with that guy. It lets you pick your favorite, and I'm here for it. I'm always thinking forward on this stuff, and I love it. So
just be responsible. And there's any number of Gambling Anonymous phone numbers out there. If you got a problem, just be smart about it, and don't ever wager more than you can afford to lose.
That's right, because gambling money has no home, friends.
Right.
It's so true.
There is a lot of truth to that.
Yep. Well, we're going to wrap this up for this episode, and then next week we'll actually, take a deep dive into all these stats and the track and the racers, and we should have we're hoping to have the odds by then as well for the next race. So, well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.